clientele, thoughts go burn. I feel like a Gucci ad-lib. Bird.
What's up guys, it's Johnny Candido of Candido Training HQ. This video is a very special one because it's featuring, as you can tell, Jaisyn Mike. Now you might be asking yourself, well Johnny, who is Jaisyn Mike? He is Mr. Athletic Over Everything on Instagram. I'll include a link in the description. I strongly recommend that you follow him because he is one of the most interesting powerlifters on the planet. He bench presses over 600 pounds. He did exactly 611.8 in his last local meet. And he also has a history of dunking like this. This was about 8 years ago. And he's about 6'1", and you can see how close he gets his head to the rim. But not only that, he can still jump to this day at 300 pounds, and this is about 40 years old. And you look at this. I'm fairly confident in saying that I don't think there's a single human on the planet who can bench press 600 pounds drug tested and do that. But to get to his bench press, I want to compare it to Daiki Kodama of Japan. He is known to be an absolute legend in the IPF, the best bench presser by far in my eyes, drug tested wise. Kodama's bench press is actually better than the 183 world record. So at 20 pounds lighter, he has a bench press world record better than a full weight class above him. To contextualize, Jaisyn's bench press Wilks is actually higher than Dacoma's. Now, to address the pause duration though, because I know people are going to be thinking about that, you can see in the super heavyweight division, sometimes they don't call the pause quite the same as they do for lighter guys. And I also want to bring that up because Kodama's bench press was set internationally, whereas Jaisyn's was set at a local Texas meet. So in the world of the IPF, it is a little bit blasphemous to make that comparison. And I will admit, to be as intellectually honest as possible, Jaisyn's international performance has not quite been up to par as his local level meet just yet. But he is actually fairly new to the sport, believe it or not. So I certainly think he has the potential to put it all together in the IPF stage. And again, with how they call super heavies, that bench press world record that I showed, the bar was continuing to sink. So I think Jaisyn's pause was at least as good as that one, if not a little bit better actually. So anyways, regarding my workout, I just did this set for fun, trying to get 4 reps. And I think both Jaisyn and I did actually get a little bit cold because we were talking so much. So it was actually feeling quite good that day, but I pushed it after a bunch of doubles and it just wasn't quite there. So I felt a little bit shame failing in front of him, but it's all good. Another point I want to bring up about Jaisyn's bench is that it's very hard to contextualize because Jaisyn is 305 pounds. And in the IPF, there's a 120 kilo, which is about 265 pound. There's a cutoff there, and then the next weight class is unlimited. So you can weigh 405 pounds. There are 2 lifters, Jezo Uepa and Ray Williams. Both have weighed 405 before at meet day, and most are around 350 to 375. And then there's Jaisyn at 305. So he's kind of stuck right there in between, and that's why I think that bench press Wilks helps put it a little bit in perspective. Now you can see here, I totally screwed this up. I screwed up the handoff initially. I didn't stand up on the platform itself. Then I screwed up touching it, but to my credit, he said don't touch it in a very rushed way, and my standard is not to touch it. So he thought I was going to touch it anyways, which I don't do. So I just kind of got shocked there. And when a guy's benching 6 plates, you want to make sure he doesn't die. But as you can see there, he nailed it right after. And then we went for 600, and that was to push the limit. And the good news is nobody died. So that's a win. Overall, training with Jaisyn was a blast. I thought it was very cool that he actually watches YouTube Fitness. You know, he's tried my 6-week program before years ago. He watches Max Tuning. So that part was a little surreal. And he has so many stories like playing ping pong in Chinatown. So you think he's almost like an old dad at the pub making stuff up, but they're all actually 100% true. Okay, so before we begin this part, what I want to say right up front is that if this video gets over, let's say 50,000 views in 1 week or over 3,000 likes, then we'll do a second part where it'll all just be a big interview. And we'll go over some different things about his background. For example, dunking. You know, maybe we'll play a little bit of one-on-one or maybe horse so I can avoid,
yeah, that could work out.
So I can avoid the paint, you know, taking up that post-up game. But anyways, here I just want to ask 3 questions and get straight to it. So the first question is, what are your most significant accomplishments in powerlifting? So just specific to powerlifting.
Okay, breaking the all-time 308 full meet bench record of 611.8 pounds and winning IPF Masters World Championship last year in Belarus, and totaling 2,061 my last meet.
All right, so you mentioned the 308, and the 308 is for drug testing, right?
Yeah.
Now, there is, so this question is going to be a little bit loaded in a sense, so you can answer it however you want. Okay, so the first part to it is, what are your future plans as far as numbers, as far as concrete numbers? Now, the second thing is, I actually did a little bit of research before this, and you are, of course, in the top 10 in the world in bench press. Mm-hmm. Now, I actually looked into this, that you are 35 pounds lighter than the second lightest. So the ninth heaviest is still 35 pounds heavier than you. And the person who's actually the biggest difference between you and them is Jaisyn, who's a full 100 pounds heavier than you. And he's around, he's not much taller than me. He might be exactly my height. So a huge difference in density, really. So my question to you is, what if it was guaranteed to you that if you went untested and gained 60 to 85 pounds, that you would have the all-time heaviest bench press in the history of the planet? Would you do that?
No.
No. So what are your plans instead then?
661 full meet IPF meet. That's most definitely, I think, within reach. But I would like to touch and go 700 by the end of the year.
So can you talk about, now I'll break my 3-question rule here, because I do want to get into that. So you say you wouldn't do that, and can you get into what your values are? So is the reason why you wouldn't do that, is it because of, for example, longevity of athleticism? Or is it, simply, let's face the reality, life expectancy, if you're going to go untested route and get that big, as a super heavy, does start to become an issue?
No, probably for my son. Like, I like the fact that it sets the guidelines for how it should be done in our household. If you can't do it where there's standards, benchmarks, and more or less being true to yourself, I don't see the point in doing it. So I would want it drug tested, has to be on video. In the 700 pounds even, it doesn't have to be in a competition. I just want to say that I touched and go 700 pounds. Now the 661 is the most I think I could handle under 308. Anything more, I would have to gain about 30 to 40 pounds. I'm a personal trainer. Being 290 pounds is hard enough trying to sell weight loss and things of that nature, especially if you know my background with modeling and all the other stuff. So I've sacrificed a lot to get to the point where I'm at naturally, because I had to put on size in order to keep this kind of strength.
Personally, I think that's really admirable, and obviously everybody has their different values, but I think, especially online, sometimes you don't see that message get out quite as much, because we all are, our eyes are kind of attracted to the extremes. We're attracted to this person who says, they left their family, they did a bunch of drugs, they did whatever it took. Sometimes that'll get more views, but I think I think it's a perspective that needs to be pushed out more sometimes, is that there are some people who can do very incredible things, and if they gave everything up, maybe you could do some numbers that you probably don't even want to list, because you don't want to give you don't want to give yourself credit for something you haven't done. But it probably could get up there, I'm sure, in weight if you just took everything aside.
If you just look at the guys that, some of the guys I get compared to in Texas, they were trash in the USAPL. When they were here, they weren't that good. And they, went the untested route, and the numbers jumped. My numbers jumped when I went to the USAPL and got drug tested. So I take more pride in that. My total went from 2,000 to 2,061 in a year and a half, drug tested. My bench jumped over 80 pounds since I left the USPA. So
and that's in the bench press especially. That's a lift that most people kind of assume it's just a given, that if you're natural or if you're drug tested. Obviously people are going to debate that in the comments, and of course everyone's going to say drug tested isn't the same thing as natural. We all know everything's fallible, and of course at the end of the day, the person who's lifting knows the answer, and then everybody else can debate forever. But the point is that if you look at the top, it's not a debate, that if you look at the top IPF lifters, their bench press is lower in relation to untested, and that difference isn't the same in the squat. You don't see that the same in the squat. So the fact that you have, as you said earlier in the workout, you have the highest male wilts potentially, right?
Close to it.
You either have it or you're very close to it, and the best way to put it is he's 2.5 kilos off the best super heavyweight bench in all of 2017, counting the last meet you did.
Yeah.
And you weigh, as I said, you weigh 35 pounds under the second heaviest. I believe to that guy you weigh 40 pounds under. So, that's very clear that there's a lot of ways you could go with that. So the last question I have here for you is, of course, you offer coaching,
Yes.
and we'll include all your information below in the description. What I want to ask you is, what specific thing do you, or really specific as you can get, what variable do you, or approach do you do that most people don't do, and do you think that if they did, they would get stronger? So I'll give you an example. Is kind of a generic answer would be to have a video where you go, oh, instead of squatting 1 time a week, squat 2 times a week. Like, we've all seen that a million times. For myself, on the sumo deadlift, I would say a wide stance snatch grip deadlift, in my opinion, is tremendously underrated, and that's something not a lot of people do. So in a similar situation to that with the bench press, what is one that you've noticed or that you believe in?
People don't take the time to master their technique. Like, everyone's technique is individual to themselves. People copy a lot. It's like a lot of mimicking, but they don't put the time into any one specific way of doing things. If you look at my very first competition where I benched 500 pounds, I looked completely different in setup, technique, wrist wraps, no belt, foot position. I took the time to master the bench press. I don't do a lot of accessories, don't do any actually. I just learned my bar path, pausing, not pausing. I have different techniques for those things. Like, a touch and go bench press is different than a pause bench press. But sometimes I'll do a pause, I'll say it's a pause rep, and someone's like, that was not pause. I'm like, if it wasn't a touch and go, it's a pause rep. That's the way I train. But also I do a depth rep where I'm pulling the bar into myself, I'm holding the bar for an extended period of time. Some people call it a Canadian bench, a Canadian pause.
Yeah.
That's what they do, but a lot of them do the soft touch. I don't believe in the soft touch. You have to look at the quality of rep. Like, once the reps get to where you start flaring or your butt comes up or things of that nature, you have to make adjustments. So that's why the video is so important. That's why I don't do, here's your program, like off your numbers. I have to see the reps. I want to see how that double went. Like, yeah, I did it for a double, but how did it look? Did you break down? Did your form break down? Is it trash? Like, I want to see that. So there's always adjustments.
So is that a top set? And then does the back off work stay relatively steady?
Yeah, I'm looking at the top sets. For the most part, like, let's say for instance with the guys that I work with, I have them do 100 reps of 225, right? It's conditioning.
Yeah.
I can do it in about 2 minutes, 100 reps, something like that.
So when you do that, how do you plan when
Just
the racket?
Just get them how you get them.
So,
but most people take about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Then when they start at 30, 40 minutes, I typically get them down to like 15 minutes. The goal is to get you down to 15 minutes.
Yeah,
I do that on Thursdays. So with my guys, I have them do 100 reps of 225. I don't care how long it takes you. I want to see how long. And on Thursdays, that's your working. That's when you do most of your work, on Thursdays. And then what I've noticed is those guys, typically the first time they do it takes them 45 minutes. But now I have guys that started at 45 minutes. Now they're doing it in 15 minutes. And that guy's 180 pounds. He's 42 years old natural, 42 years old. And now he's doing 100 reps of 225 in like 15 minutes.
Damn. So at that point, do you do the same thing with increased loading, or do you always keep it 225?
225 just for that. That's an exercise. 225 for 100 reps.
Okay.
Like I said, I did 225 every day for 15 years. And every day it became like push-ups.
Yeah. See, that's an interesting thing, is that if you hear that in the wrong context, you might say like, oh, that seems like bro training.
Yeah.
Whereas if you hear it in the context of your total training, it's no, you don't do accessories, so it's actually more specific because you're replacing an accessory with that as an accessory.
Yeah, never thought about it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. Of course, we'll have information in the description if you want programming specifically from him. As I imagine, that requires a lot of individualization.
Yes.
So you can't be taking on like 200 clients pushing out the same thing.
No.
Cookie cutters.
Don't do that at all.
But
everything's different.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it, guys. That's no last words, right?
No,
nothing else to add here. That's it, guys. Make sure to like the video, support the channel, subscribe if you haven't already, and thanks for watching, guys. Peace.
Later.
You can't stop me! That's all you